There are moments in life when you realize that preserving peace at any cost does not create harmony. It creates quiet self-betrayal. You begin to sense that the weight you carry isn't coming from the world outside, but from the people you've allowed too close. The soft voice in your mind that once whispered discomfort now sounds like a warning siren. Something is wrong. Something has crossed a line, and for the first time you can no longer pretend that endurance is strength. One of the greatest Stoic truths is that the quality of your life is shaped not merely by what you pursue, but by what you refuse to tolerate. This is why boundaries matter. This is why self-respect matters, and this is why love, even deep love, cannot become an excuse for losing yourself. In this video, we'll explore 6 toxic behaviors that no one should ever accept, not from strangers, not from friends, and not even from family. Each one, if left unchallenged, slowly erodes your dignity, clarity, and inner peace. But as we move through these 6 behaviors, you'll see that reclaiming your strength is less about confrontation and more about choosing the level of peace you are willing to live with. Let's begin. 1. Disrespect hidden behind humor. There are people who deliver their cruelty wrapped in the softness of a joke. They mock your ambitions, minimize your accomplishments, and wound you under the guise of humor. When you react, they retreat behind a familiar shield, insisting you are too sensitive or unable to take a joke. This tactic is subtle, and that is precisely why it works so well. It trains you to shrink yourself to maintain the comfort of others. Stoicism teaches that dignity begins with internal clarity. When someone disguises disrespect as humor, what you are truly witnessing is their inability to speak honestly without causing harm. Responding with anger only fuels their narrative, but responding with grounded silence disrupts it. True humor uplifts. Anything that diminishes your worth is not a joke but a revelation of character. Disrespect wrapped in humor is often a learned behavior. People who do it have discovered that cruelty becomes easier to deliver when it can be disguised as entertainment. They rely on social pressure to force you into participation, because rejecting the joke exposes the actual intention behind it. The moment you withdraw your laughter, you remove the mask they hide behind. This subtle shift forces them to confront the fact that their words carry weight and that you are no longer willing to be the cushion for their insecurities. When you hold your ground, you reclaim the emotional space they once occupied without permission. 2. Emotional manipulation and the art of manufactured guilt. Manipulation often arrives disguised as concern. It twists your empathy into obligation, transforming your kindness into a tool that can be used against you. You hear phrases designed to bend your will, expressions of disappointment, exaggerated sacrifices, or reminders of everything they claim to have done for you. Behind each statement lies a simple intention: control. The Stoics believed that you are responsible for your actions, not for the emotional storms others create. Manipulators thrive on blurring that boundary. They want you to feel guilty for choosing yourself. They want your decisions to orbit their expectations. This is why the Stoic response is not to argue, justify, or defend. It is to stand firm in truth without emotional panic. When you refuse to wrestle for understanding, their power dissolves. Your calmness becomes their confusion, because manipulation fails the moment you stop reacting. Your emotional stability is not a currency for anyone else to spend. Manipulation persists only where confusion exists. When you clarify what you value and what you refuse to accept, the manipulator loses their leverage. Their tactics depend on your willingness to doubt yourself, and clarity destroys that foundation. By observing their patterns without absorbing their accusations, you build emotional distance, and distance is the enemy of manipulation. Over time, you stop feeling responsible for their feelings, and you begin to see how much of your energy was being siphoned to maintain their sense of control. That recognition marks the end of their influence and the beginning of your autonomy. 3. The weight of relentless negativity. Human energy is contagious, and continuous negativity has a way of invading the mind like slow-moving fog. Some people carry storms with them, and anywhere they go, those storms follow. They dwell in complaint, magnify every inconvenience, and turn every conversation into a vortex of pessimism. These individuals rarely seek solutions. They seek attention, sympathy, or someone willing to absorb their emotional debris. Stoicism teaches that the mind must be guarded like a sacred space. You cannot cultivate clarity while standing in the downpour of someone else's chaos. Stepping away does not make you cold or uncaring, it makes you responsible. You can love someone and still recognize that their presence dims your inner light. When you begin to remove yourself from unnecessary negativity, you notice that your thoughts become sharper, your emotions quieter, and your days more stable. The peace you protect becomes the peace that guides you. Negativity takes root when you begin to internalize someone else's worldview. The more time you spend around chronic complainers, the easier it becomes to mistake their dissatisfaction for truth. Their perspective starts coloring your own, and before long you carry burdens that were never yours. Creating space from their influence is not avoidance but preservation. By limiting exposure, you give your mind a chance to recalibrate, to breathe outside the noise, and to recover the optimism that negativity slowly corrodes. This act of protection strengthens your emotional resilience and allows you to navigate life with more clarity and purpose. 4. The destruction caused by lack of accountability. Some people live their lives untouched by self-reflection. Nothing is ever their fault. Every mistake has an explanation that conveniently absolves them. When they hurt you, they rewrite the story in a way that makes you responsible for their actions. This refusal to accept accountability is more than a flaw. It is a danger to anyone who values growth. A Stoic does not chase apologies. A Stoic observes behavior. Patterns reveal more than promises ever will. When forgiveness becomes permission, your kindness is no longer compassion. It becomes self-harm. The strongest form of wisdom is recognizing when someone has no intention of changing. Walking away from such people is not an act of anger, but an act of maturity. You cannot build a peaceful life with those who invest in chaos. You can only step out of the cycle and allow your steadiness to lead you elsewhere. A lack of accountability creates an emotional imbalance that forces you into a caretaker role. You end up managing their reactions, repairing their damage, and absorbing blame that doesn't belong to you. Over time, this drains your confidence and distorts your sense of right and wrong. Choosing to disengage is not an act of dismissal, but a liberation from a cycle that cannot produce growth. When you stop cleaning up the messes of those who refuse to evolve, you reclaim your emotional resources and redirect them toward people and environments that honor responsibility and maturity. 5. Envy and the subtle war of hidden competition. Envy is often silent, but its presence can be felt. Someone smiles at your success, yet their eyes fail to match the enthusiasm of their words. Their compliments feel thin, their support strained, and their energy shifts every time you rise a little higher. Hidden competition often exists among those who are threatened by your growth. Stoicism teaches discernment, not suspicion. Not everyone who appears supportive is truly on your side, and not everyone clapping wants to see you win. The thoughts of envious people are clouded by comparison, and comparison blinds them to their own potential. That blindness makes them resent yours. Instead of confronting them or proving yourself, the Stoic approach is to move quietly, persist consistently, and withdraw gracefully from people whose energy shifts with your achievements. Your progress is not a spectacle for others to approve. It is a path you walk for yourself. Envy often exposes itself through subtle resistance to your evolution. You may notice that they become distant when you improve your life or dismissive when you share accomplishments. Their discomfort reveals that they measure their worth against your results. The healthiest response is not to suppress your growth, but to create emotional distance. When you reduce access to your progress, their insecurity loses its fuel. Your journey continues without interference, guided by your own standards instead of someone else's unresolved comparisons. 6. Boundary violations and the quiet erosion of self-respect. Boundaries are the invisible architecture of your life. They define where your responsibility ends and where someone else's begins. When a person repeatedly ignores your boundaries, what they reveal is not affection or concern, but entitlement. Anyone who pushes past your limits is trying to shape your life according to their comfort, not your well-being. Stoicism teaches that personal freedom begins with self-mastery. You do not need to explain, justify, or defend your boundaries to those committed to crossing them. State your limits once, clearly and calmly, and then let your actions reinforce what your words already set in place. When you honor your time, others begin to adjust. When you protect your energy, those who relied on draining it start to distance themselves. This is not loss, this is alignment. Strength is not expressed through anger, but through the quiet confidence of walking away the moment respect disappears. A boundary is not meant to restrict connection, but to preserve the quality of it. It filters out relationships built on convenience or control and reveals who values your autonomy. People who consistently respect your boundaries demonstrate emotional maturity and a genuine desire for mutual respect. Those who resist them expose their dependence on access they never earned. By upholding your limits consistently, you reshape your environment into one that supports your values. The result is a life anchored in self-respect rather than sacrifice. Protect your inner world with clarity and conviction. Peace grows the moment you stop tolerating what harms your sense of self.